I've worked with many of you, but my name is Chris McCall. I'm the preparedness coordinator at York County EMA. Been involved with acting in a lot of the shelter efforts over the past few months. Really excited to be back here for more of a tabletop discussion and going through certain scenarios with you. So first off, before we start off, I want to get some introductions around the room. I'm going to start with Phil. I know you know everybody, but we'll see what you got.
More people showed up than we thought, so that's great. I'm actually surprised, including Megan and Art, of course, who we'll introduce in a second. And Vicki showed up, which is great. Does everyone know? Well, why don't you start? Because
Okay. Hi, I'm Vicki Erickson. I'm a registered nurse. I live here in Acton, and I'm the local health officer for the town.
The local what?
Pardon me?
Well, you're the local what?
Health officer.
Hi, I'm Joyce Batchy. I've gotten to know most of you, and those of you who've known for a long time.
And I'm Hope Dennekamp, and I think most of you know me.
Ray Lopez, here in Acton.
Tim Collins.
Kelly Collins.
Neil Coleman, live here in Acton, pretty active at YCEMA and now active here.
Lynn Tillman.
Hi, Ann Sabelli, Acton resident, local Red Cross volunteer.
Bob Sinali, Red Cross, myself.
Nevin Corbin, I just live across the street.
Bob Berlin, live in town.
so I told this story once, but I don't know if you folks heard it. When I met Tova from the Red Cross here in January, it was one of the first things I did. Because I saw that the shelter was called independent, designated independent. I didn't want to lift that one. And when we met, she goes, "Oh, did you know that there's a couple in Acton that works with us in Florida and other places with our shelters?" And I said, "No." I said, "Can you give me their name and tell me where it's from?" And I tracked them down and surprised them on the phone one day and asked if they would please be the first volunteers, and they were. And they're still here, which is great. And now we have 14 people designated as volunteers. Of course, the health officer, Vicki, is on that list of contacts, right? SOP. So now you put a face to the name. Tim is the only one that wasn't here for the first class course day. So these folks are all from the county and Alfred did. But six of us in here on a CERT team, of course, you and I are on the communications team. He was always down there. He was quite a bit. Art Cleaves was here last time. He's, of course, the director of the county EMA. And he's here again tonight supporting us, which is great. And tonight we also have the deputy director, which is Megan. And the CERT folks, again, know who that is. And Virginia's back there recording for us, which we appreciate. So, I guess without any further ado, Chris.
All right, great. So we'll get into it. So a little overview of tonight. So we've done introductions, but we're going to go quickly into shelter exercises. I'll just go over a little bit of like ground rules, a little bit of background, make sure everyone's comfortable with things. Then we'll jump straight into the exercises. Then we're going to do a test of RAID for shelter volunteers. RAID is a system that's going to be used to notify you that the shelter is opening and needs volunteers. So we're going to do a test of that here. Make sure everybody receives at least that alert somehow, and you can at least see how you respond in real time. We'll go over some Acton-specific updates on Phil's end. I think it related to questions about some of the different meetings you had, the school tour the other week, and different items like that. And then finally, we'll wrap up. So, all right. So, a quick overview of tonight's exercises and just kind of how things are going to run. So, I'm going to split you into two groups based on pretty much where you're sitting. We're going to have two exercises with a debrief at the end of both of those. The first exercise is going to focus on shelter documentation. There's going to be one team that focuses on intake, and the other team that focuses on some of the operational aspects as well. I have printouts for all of that, so you'll be good there. And then the second exercise is going to be different shelter scenarios. So kind of leave it broad like that. But basically, you'll have 15 minutes to discuss prioritization issues, and then you'll have new information given to you and have an additional 15 minutes to address that. So it's like kind of a broad overview of those. So some of the key items to remember, again, make sure everyone in your group is participating. I know some of you have like a long day, but the nice thing is that when you come in here, everyone's super energetic, ready to solve problems and everything, so just make sure everyone's participating. I'll have a timer up on the screen so you know how much time you have until like we either have the next debrief or different items like that. If you do run out of time, don't worry too much. Again, this is kind of like meant to try to see how long certain things may take. Maybe we think something will take 10 minutes, it takes 20. So, don't worry too much about that. If we have a hard stop, then that's also part of the learning lessons for next time to know, hey, this takes a little bit more time than maybe we would have thought. The other piece, especially for exercise 2, we're going to ask that you write things down, and then also that we can, Phil and I can collect the sheets at the end. I know during the last class, there was a lot of really good information that was written down and we didn't keep it, and so we'll make sure we have this for next time to be able to improve things. Did talk to Phil as well, and there'll be a short survey I'll send out with the materials either tomorrow or Wednesday. Hopefully just 3 questions that can also capture any other things that maybe aren't written down. So that is the big piece there. So any questions kind of just about the overview format and things like that? Okay, that sounds great. So Team A, we have this table and then Neil and Lynn, they're going to be Team A. Team B, Team Kelly, the back table, so we're going to have that. So what I'm going to do, I have your folders here that has all your information. If you need pens or anything like that, just let me know and I can help with those pieces. So,
Before you hand those out, one thing I forgot to mention is, we're here again because I said a couple of weeks, many weeks ago now, I guess, I said, Chris, is there any way we can expand on what you did before? And here he is. He spent a lot of time making this specifically for us. We didn't invite anyone else like we did the first time. But he spent a lot of time making this class tonight for us and planning the exercises and all that. And all the support we get from the county, which is why I'm wearing my shirt, by the way. Plus I have one. It has been amazing. And again, Chris did a lot of work to make this happen, so I forgot to say that. And I'll be quiet.
okay. Okay, so Team A, I'm going to hand out these materials. I'll give them a quick explanation so you know. Anyone need pens? Here. Pens? Does anyone need pens? Alright, so just a quick Alright, just a quick overview. So this is exercise 1, so we're going to have 15 minutes for this initial portion. For Team A up here, you're going to use the resident cards to fill out the necessary forms. Both teams have SOPs for the acting shelter SOPs for you to refer to, as well as the forms that are relevant. For Team B, you're going to use the resident cards to determine how you would document operational needs in the shelter. I'll say one thing, if there isn't a form or if there isn't anything to write down on, create one. We'll use that for future reference when it comes to items. So you have 15 minutes. If you have any questions about anything, the resident cards are in green. One of everything. What? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I guess. What do we do? So the form we need to fill out first. New resident. So, you got it. she'll recall that.
So,
Oh, I want to be the.
Oh, I see, okay.
Can we do, Chris, I'm sorry, is this a scenario like we could be the resident and then have the registration?
The family full.
We don't care.
no, I don't.
Okay. So I think we
Whatever you
have,
want to do.
I think we have one piece of paper for each one.
Those are the next
Or
ones.
use scraps first. How long will it be?
Okay, so who wants to be a resident? Okay, you're going to be a resident. You want to be a resident? You want to be a resident? Okay, I'll be an intake person. That's normally what I do.
All right, so that will be this person as well.
Okay, so I just have to read this scenario.
Three pieces of paper. You fill out.
So, one situation, I guess now, that you've done all this, I want to ask Team A a question. So, resident number 2, Dorothy Mills. So, she has a medical episode, 9 EMT. What information do you have for me to be able to determine what's going on?
Okay. She hasn't had heat for 24 hours and she's cold. We just gave her some chamomile tea. I think like that. If we read this closely, I would have put a lot of sugar in it too, unless she's diabetic. She needs her medications, but her niece Jane can get them. And she's on blood thinners. She has high blood pressure and she really does need an anxiety medicine. She's anxious to get that. She does have mild dementia. She's hard of hearing. She doesn't have her hearing aids with her. She uses a walker. She doesn't have that.
Okay. Any other information anyone else you suggest I talk to?
Well, her niece Jane.
Niece Jane.
Mhm. For any information at all, it would be Jane, because I called her to go over the consents and everything, and Jane wants to come and get her.
Okay.
If she can. Yeah.
So that makes sense. So one interesting thing, and I know Team B's kind of thinking this, they have extra information as well. So what information do you have about Dorothy?
For Dorothy?
For Dorothy, yes.
Oh, okay.
She's altered mental status, and so a little dementia going on.
Yep, and she also said that she's terrified of taking her anxiety pills with others because she had a bad reaction before, but can't remember specifics.
And that was documented, that almost like somebody, let's say, you registered her, but then she pulls someone aside in the dormitory area and mentions an item like that.
Oh, okay.
So I did that, intentionally kind of think about, but just remember like certain things like that, like make sure to share information between teams, because there's a lot of times too where you'll have a little bit of information, but then they pull someone aside. Now I'm curious on your end, TV, where did you document, or did you document that piece about her pulling someone aside?
We did not
No, we
did not.
I just put here altered mental.
Well, we tried that because this is something the nurse would have to know. The first place that she was going to be escorted to was a nurse. Anybody with medical need to go to the nurse. And then the facility, what was the name? Dormitory supervisor would be taking the rest of the family and setting them up.
But I guess, let's say, if you had put it down on a document, would you have done it on her registration? Would you have done it on?
We would have done, I would have done it on the medical form. If we had one, yeah, with her medications listed out.
Well-
Supposed to take, maybe she'll bring a list with her, some of them do.
It says during this, it was during bed assignment,
Yeah.
when she was taken to her area that she mentioned this. So it would be at that point, whoever's doing that would take her to help.
So, and I also want to point out that she has dementia.
Yes.
So, you really have to look at kind of what she's giving you for information and how much of that is actual and how much is.
That's why I wanted
dementia.
to call her. Right.
No, that's really smart, yeah. I intentionally gave like different information just to make sure that everybody kind of knows that you.
That is a good note, that
And
maybe we should have put down was to contact
Yeah.
to get more information about the severity of the charges.
My only other thought was there is to make sure as we're setting up the placements of people, that woman with the walker, we want to have it close to the bathroom. We want to make sure that she has the ability to get there, and possibly with her dementia, we should probably assign a shelter worker to be with her until we get her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ours only said that she uses a walker, we weren't sure whether
She
she
has
had
it
it or
or
not.
Okay, I would assume she did if she walked in. I never know.
No, she didn't have it. She said, in our scenario, she didn't have it with her.
There's
so.
anything, nothing.
Yeah.
So then, thinking of it, should there be a medical form that we have separately to,
Yeah, separately that gets attached.
Yeah, I think to be able to write down a lot of information, because it does, I mean, these forms. I was just looking at this as the direct intake, and I had all this in my head, because I'm so used to getting all of this information and then having to just like regurgitate it.
Well, this is what I think we kind of agreed upon, was the intake would be strictly an intake.
Right.
These specifics would come up once they go and see the nurse and then different forms there, but our whole mission is to get people into the shelter
Right.
and then put them in the right, with the right people.
I thought it was,
So-
the way we discussed it, I think, was that if they did have medical issues, right, that we would send them to the nurse.
Right.
Okay. You know, we wouldn't do anything at registration for that, we would just make sure that they got to the nurse.
That's why we added that question.
And that way there would be confidentiality also.
I mean, this goes with the question I did bring up, the fact, if we have a nurse.
Exactly, that's what I
I
was
mean,
just
just
gonna
because
say.
there's a bunch of us on
Or
doesn't mean.
or a designated individual
Yeah.
that could take their medical information.
If they want that
Confidential.
responsibility, that's a lot of responsibility for someone. It really is. So, given that, if we do have a nurse or someone wants to take that responsibility, do we have a specific form, like an H&P form, that kind of stuff? Do we want to get that detailed about things? Or,
Because then that becomes like HIPAA.
Yeah, we had to worry about HIPAA on that.
But
Then
we
you're putting
do
on
have,
paper and,
but we do
There's
have this, and we can.
information here, so
Right.
I think separating it out.
Well,
We
that's
have
right.
a file,
So
so
HIPAA
medical
doesn't
issues, we
apply.
have a file, and
HIPAA does
especially
not
with
apply
somebody
to
like
this
her.
scenario, right?
Yeah, sorry. I
so
didn't
what
mean to be
about like a
talking
checklist
about
kind of thing, like in the doctor's office? If we did something like, what does Red Cross do when they have,
We try not to put anything down on paper if we don't have to, but we would send somebody, we usually would send someone to a nurse or call a nurse and have the nurse come or talk to the client directly, we call clients, talk to the client directly over the phone.
oh, I see.
If it's nothing that's, obviously if it's an emergency, we call 911.
Yeah,
But we technically, if a client came and said, you know, I have this asthma medicine, do you need us to store it for you? Do you have it with you? That kind of thing.
so,
We don't really try to take like their whole medical history.
okay,
We-
okay,
We're
yeah,
not there
we're
to
getting
be.
too detailed.
Yeah.
Only
Yeah,
the
we're
emergent
Yeah,
needs.
the emergent needs, right.
So, like if someone has seizures and we don't know that, or if someone has cardiac issues and we don't know that,
Right.
So any of that, we would call 911 immediately. Right?
Okay.
Do our best to keep them safe from any harm. if
Right.
they're seizing, But we would
Just-
call 911 to kind of try to handle.
just be the first responder, get them to a place where they're stable and get them out.
I think our thing is we're thinking too much like nurses, we need to think more like.
Yeah.
You gotta get into that emergency, what are we doing? We're giving people a place to go because they just had to get out of their homes.
Right,
We gotta get them inside, get them settled.
I totally agree, and I
As
thought,
quick as we can, so.
okay.
We had a gentleman here who, very nice, walked a great distance, offered him some coffee, and in conversation, he said he was a veteran and he suffered from PTSD, and loud noises frightened him, and so he would prefer a quiet place. He's also very good with his hands, mechanical and helping out with things. And by the way, my dog is here too. So, took care of the dog, but the PTSD, if we put him with our lovely dementia lady over here, I know there would be an explosion. Because she gets an Academy Award for what she did. And this poor gentleman said, see what I lived with? He's married to her. But there was, to me, it wasn't I think for the medical, so far, it was emotional for him. I can be helpful, I can do things, but I do need to be away from,
Yeah,
you know,
Right.
yeah.
free.
It probably would have been good for him to have a dog with him if
You would have to go.
Well, a service dog, we wouldn't
We-
separate.
It wouldn't be separated, no.
It's not a service.
Not a service dog.
No.
Not a service dog.
Chris,
Then no.
we
They
did
go
agree,
anywhere and everywhere.
we did agree, and we added a question on the registration form, because we did agree that it's strictly intake at that desk, right? And so we added a question to that form, do you have any immediate medical concerns, right? And then that's where things get separated.
Right.
All right. Just to set that part straight. So that question is on the registration form now that we added, to make sure there's a delineation.
So,
What we do after that,
No,
No, that was what I was trying to say just a moment ago, that we talked at great length on this particular subject. And my recollection was that because we want to move them through intake and get them settled as quickly as possible, that we would just, yes or no, and then we would direct them to the nurse so that we weren't tying up the line with all of these personal questions with, people waiting,
Right.
to get checked in. So just, I think we should have that in mind.
It's just a yes or no.
It was just a yes or no, and there was
And
some
yes, we would go.
discussion as to whether we should have allergies on that as well. So just kind of a note to self that,
do we have a registration form here?
What?
The registration form?
part of it,
Yes,
they don't
but
do the
it's-
whole thing.
ours is different.
Ours doesn't have that on it.
Does it have on the back?
This is, right, because this is the one that the county provided, we kind of did our own.
Oh, yeah, okay,
That's
that's,
still
We
the.
did it separate.
I added questions here about, A, about pets, and the other part about immediate medical concern. I added them in
I
here.
just wrote.
Yeah, that's, so they are
So
on
we're
our forms.
improvising here,
Okay.
but,
They are on our forms.
right.
Okay.
So then going back to the, one second, so going back to the question of like, let's say somebody finds out something medically or any other type of notes, is the action to try to find a registration form and write it down? Is it to alert a shelter manager or what? What's the best?
We send them to the health people.
Okay.
The-
So whoever's designated as health,
Whoever's designated is that, yeah.
Okay.
And if they're not there, then shelter manager,
then shelter manager.
because shelter manager will be in touch with Phil saying, hey, we have an issue.
Shelter manager, gotta do all those jobs that nobody's doing.
The shelter manager should be made aware if there is a client with a serious health issue. You don't have to get all the details.
And then, Rick?
I thought that you had a waiver form here, not
And these are ones
for anyone to be held liable for that
There
act.
there is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, but what I did not see was, and I don't know if it would be feasible, one or two page as far as rules, 'cause no rules were discussed on the intake. Okay, so, and, when I asked about rules, it was like, well, you can't have any firearms, okay? That didn't say anything about knives, which is also a weapon. So if there was a form that would like specify and then have those people sign it, then that's the agreement that they're agreeing to this whole situation. Well, and I don't know if that can be condensed.
Well, there is
I
actually,
think there is one in the
there is a
SOPs.
very explicit
Yeah, very
rule
explicit.
page in our SOP. that I-
It is.
It's near the-
22,
Right, that's an SOP.
Page 20.
No, but the form, that's one of the signage things that would be made, that when they're registering, one of the first things they do is read those rules and read them at the desk.
Yeah, okay.
And if they don't-
I missed that
If they say, I'm
conversation.
sorry, I'm bringing my gun in, then no, you're not coming here, that's not. So in the SOP, the latest version, there's like, I don't know, 14 or 15 explicit rules, and the last time we talked about how do we deal with the legal cannabis issue, and I changed the wording, which you all saw. And it uses weapons, it doesn't say firearms, there's no weapons, period. Because that could be anything. So, again, the rules are part of the signage part that would be made, which I'm now working on, and we talked about it last meeting. And basically, it's like, legally, once you read something like that, and you do this all the time online, checking your little box, you're not gonna read all this legalese, but they know you're gonna check the box, right? Well, in this case, the minute you look at those rules and decide to register to come into that shelter, you just signed a waiver legally. You know what I mean? And so the rules would be handed to them at the registration desk, and they would have to, you know, do you agree with these rules? If they say yes and register, they just signed the waiver.
Second
So we
question.
should have
In
that
addition
here.
to that.
Yeah.
My second question. Mark here needed insulin to make the refrigerator. You talked about, is there some medicine that we can store for you? Now, would that be at the intake, or would it be like going to the nurse and then labeling that and
That would fall under the health officer or the
Okay.
plant. We would label it, we would put it away, make sure that that's all squared away.
Probably would have to think about having, you know, just like little plastic containers, so we can put
Yeah.
somebody's name on it, and it's in a fridge, designated fridge. Which at the Acton school, I know there's the nurse's office, we would probably keep it right in there.
Yeah.
And you got the other issue too with older ladies with dementia on meds,
Right.
which probably means someone's gonna have to monitor for intake, to make sure she takes them.
Is she there by herself?
Yes, she is, but luckily,
Also,
I arranged for her niece to come get her.
So she's she made the
So, in a situation that somebody couldn't get, even to the, you know, like her niece couldn't get there, so I was kind of thinking of all of these different things. So she would definitely need meds. That my first question is, how can we get meds for her, because they're in her home, she didn't bring them with her. Then the second thing, I did have her niece on the phone, and I was going to call her back later to get the list of all of her meds, but then I said, I have some consent forms that I just want to briefly go over with you, because she's really concerned about signing them, and she said if you said it was okay, she would sign them, and it gives permission for us to share information, you know, I explained everything. I didn't put that all on here because she's being such a little pill. No, I was having to kind of de-escalate her to keep her calm. Yeah, so, but I mean, these are some of the things we have to think about, and we might want somebody like her just to, after we get the information, just to like move on right away, or
One of the
send
things
to
is
somebody who can, you know, who feels comfortable dealing
But
with
with
it.
three of us at
Yeah.
a table, or two of us, I started laughing with Robert here, who's not Robert, as we know, because of what she was going through. I mean, the de-escalation, but what she was saying to her, and I'm thinking, oh my God. So you sort of have to be very focused.
You do.
Because, you know, this one, you know, wow, she's either got a basket case or somebody's up to lunch, and we don't really want to say that to clients or
No, I mean,
people
she
coming
has
in.
she has dementia, and she can't
Yes.
remember anything, and she has high anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
What I need to do is figure out what's going to de-escalate her, get her calm, and try to get as much information as I can,
But while
get her
that's
to another
happening-
place, and then I call her niece where it's quiet and get the rest
Okay,
of it.
there's no niece to call.
Then we're just gonna have to wing it. You know, I'll be able to call her doctor.
911,
Yeah.
or the EMT. If
Or
there's
we
an
would assign her
EMT
with a
there,
staff member until we got
EMT.
that extra
but
help.
if not, we're not equipped to handle those situations.
No.
Or to do
911.
that reminders or medication administration or any of those things that are supposed to be.
Oh,
That's another
yeah.
one.
I mean, I think temporarily, just for, you know, like, until they can get there, we'd be able to handle it with, because there are how many nurses? 1, 2, 3, yeah, 4. Okay, yeah. Oh, you were a nurse too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, yeah,
I
so.
think there's something else we may be realizing here, well, I just did. Stepping out of our area of expertise. When do we say, wait a minute, I'm not qualified
Right,
to do this?
right.
And nobody in here that I know of is a mental health specialist, especially dealing with PTSD and things like that as well. So when we're out of that box,
How many are nurses?
911 is our emergency number as well, right?
And for mental health, there's also 988,
Yep.
so you would, depending on what the situation
But the
is.
disaster, that's when Jay was on.
Yeah, and one more thing to note about it as well too.
Let's do one person at a time so we can all hear this good conversation. But I do have a question to the Sabellis. What's a normal, how many people are typically at the registration area in your experience?
Depending on the size, but usually at least two. Right?
Right, that makes sense, because you were talking about having to be focused. If you're by yourself, you're not going to be able to.
You know, you have to have at least.
Okay.
You should never have any,
Physical.
especially at that sort of high tension area, you should always have 2 people.
I agree. Maybe 3 if we can spare the
And-
body. I think
yeah.
that's kind of safety in numbers.
One of them did.
And in the first class that we took with your accounting, we had it divided like the voting does the alphabetically, and that seemed to flow a lot better with
That's a good
people,
idea.
rather
Very good
than just
idea.
having people just come in.
Mhm.
And, yeah, that's just something to think about when we do something like
That's
that.
a really good idea.
Yeah. I also like the idea that Kelly brought up about in the ER, that you have those folders, and all that information is in the folder.
Yeah, but that's a HERT team though, so that's a very different
Okay.
than a CERT team, right? So a HERT team, we are still, a HERT team is inside the hospital, so we have a ZAP coming in. Those folders still sometime down the road have to be put into the hospital data system.
Okay.
So the way we use those folders are, is they go from, with the patient to place, and then eventually get back to us.
Okay.
And then, because everything that's written on it, because we have orders, lab orders, we have radiology orders, things like that. And then those come back to one of us, usually the charge or whoever, and then we make sure they get to medical records.
Okay.
Because during the disaster, we don't do any electronics, it's all
Okay.
down.
Yeah.
Real quick, and then have another question.
So what happens to these forms after the people have to register?
You say them at least, I mean, they'd have to be filed away somewhere. I
They
mean,
go in a folder.
I guess if they're, maybe go to the office for the elementary school in this case. So,
They would wind up in this building because they have a safe and places here. It's not going to be stored anywhere else. They would wind up here after the shelter was closed.
Oh, yeah.
So then
They were secure and
there
everything.
there would be a need for like a manila folder and label Johnson.
I'll have to take up a collection because I've already blown my year budget and only 3 weeks into the year.
How much you need?
So, you know, I'll pass the bucket.
Did you get the radios? Seriously, for the radios, we should pass the bucket. I mean, I'm
We'll
looking at
talk about
Toyotas,
that,
you
we'll talk
know.
about that later. I got some goodies, but that's later. We want to stop first.
yeah. And then just, for the hospital records.
No, the Red Cross, you put them right into your database, right?
Right, but
As-
before that, or if we're at like a local, like, if it happened here quickly and the Red Cross took over, let's say there wasn't connectivity, we would have a binder, we would keep those registration forms right at the registration desk.
Yeah.
To refer back to.
And then one question, so I know this team, when you were documenting things, there were certain questions would have been helpful. Operations, you probably had the fewest forms to work with and everything. Were there certain forms, documents that you found would have been useful or more helpful for you to have?
Only thing I was thinking is, we know the disaster's coming, we come up and set up the shelter. So, right, I would have liked to have a map of, okay, because we know we're gonna have to separate families and single, so we're gonna have to set up the rooms and have the map on where, seats, cots 1 to 7 are single men, cots 8 to, so I would like to know, the dormitory list at right there.
And I think we talked about it real quick on the tour, right, which makes perfect sense ahead of time, so I'll do something.
Mhm.
And then both teams real quick, what was the thing that, or was there something that took you more time than you thought it would? And if so, what was it?
The registration form.
Okay, yeah, it takes a lot longer than you think, right?
But because we're doing like all of the health information too, so I think if we can separate that, it just helps to streamline it.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna like our version better.
Okay.
It's shorter, and then we just peel them off to specific people. Also, the thing on the dormitory, I see that as a changing environment. It depends on what's coming in the door, what our needs are gonna be. There's no way I can think of that you could specifically lay it out in advance. We don't know we're gonna get a guy with PTSD and a service dog, we don't know we're gonna get how many children, or, so that would be the problem for us. Right, John, figure out, rearranging is necessary.
Well, we could have a standard idea of where we want to put people, and then we can move those boundaries as needed,
It's
right?
like field artillery, you gotta
Yeah.
adjust fine.
You gotta adjust it, yeah.
Potentially the other thing too is, I don't know exactly, I can't remember exactly which classroom or what had it, but potentially chalkboards, whiteboards in some of those rooms could be used and maybe set up ahead of time, like before that, and just kind of say, okay, this is the plan for now, and be able to change that. So the nice thing is that your shelter is in an elementary school.
Well, see, that's a good idea, because they had, yeah, I saw some of those there, and those also help break up the room. Into, you know, so it's not like the conference gym.
So we're going to Mickey and then Tom.
Okay. So did you say Vicky and then?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't want to go. So for somebody like Dorothy, yeah, who, so I really needed her niece. You know, she told me she had a niece and we were able to get hold of her. The only place I had to write it down on her phone number was under family members, but that's for other family members in the shelter, correct?
No.
Correct.
So I think on this form, what I would recommend is
So
that
it's
we
It's at the
have,
top of the form.
was it contact
Well, it
person?
says other phone, and so I just put the contact name in, and then put it there, you know?
On this form, we have a contact person.
On the consent to share,
Yeah.
right? And that's what okay, and I did put it there, but I wasn't doing the consents yet, you know, when I was taking information, and I wasn't sure, so I just wrote it in there, and
And obviously, Chris has made this class concentrate on getting familiar with our forms, which
Yes.
is exactly what's happening. So.
That's good.
So, yeah, 'cause and then the other thing with that too, and I think it's just a good note, is that whenever, let's say that an incident happens, is pulling the entire form and just quickly scanning it, because again, like, you'll see the other contact, put it there, you would put other family members, and so it's like, you know, a good thing to note that like people may put different things in the forms as well, so we have that information. And then, Bob, you have a comment?
So we were talking about, you know, setting it up and who's where and that whole thing. So what we do, we usually have some place where we can document, okay, here's cop 1A, 1B, and who's in that cop. Not open to the public can't see that. But if somebody comes in and wants to know where, you know, whatever their name is, we'll have that information.
Okay.
So, you know, maybe in the office, in the elementary school.
Which is right next to where registration would be. So.
Right.
So someone's.
So it's just important to make sure that we get the registration form
Just,
onto that.
Go to the intercom and say, hey Bob, come to the vice principal's office.
All right, well, that sounds good. So for these sheets, collect those and pass them off to the right and the left. We'll move on to the second exercise.
Okay, I guess second.
That's it, huh?
you were really good.
It's probably gonna be done.
Incident report.
Yeah, since everything else going on.
All right.
One of you guys can.
Okay, good.
I don't know.
Team B. Okay, so this exercise here, this is basically going to give you an overview of the situation and try to get you to prioritize different items. The answers in the note sheets are the things paperclip to it, so just try to note some of that down so that way we can save that for later. But right now you're going to have 30 minutes for this exercise to start off, so discuss.
Okay, so the shelter operations, current occupancy is 45 people. Okay, storm continues, all residents are expected. Problems with that. Food's running low, heat issues, residents.
I think it's adequate, but that's all committed.
Well, they're gonna be, we're
Once they're
gonna.
Ready?
Unless they can't.
But I'm so limited. So very good. Then there, go Bart.
Pizza, that
And then
was
we
right.
have
Pizza.
All right, so that one obviously threw a lot at you there. You had to inject 15 minutes in, trying to go through prioritization. I guess starting at the beginning when you first got this, how did both sides approach prioritization? I guess I'll start with TV. How did you approach it?
Food is priority, and then heat was our secondary problem, and then the stressed kids. The volunteer calling out, no, you know, we just figure out, we would let them know, we'd let the shelter manager know, and maybe they can make some calls for volunteer, but that's the lowest of our priority right now. We just kind of break up.
But the first two priorities would also be reported up.
That we're in got this situation that we may need help with.
Report to who?
The next hire, which would be Phil.
Okay.
Our supervisor.
We, to our supervisor would call Phil.
Okay, great. EMA, how did you approach prioritization?
First, food, children, eat, volunteer.
Okay. Sounds good. Why that order? Or at least like, tell me about some of the conversations you had around it.
Because we figured if you have stressed kids, everybody's gonna be stressed, so the food's the most important. Stressed kids is the second, and then the heat stuff, because we don't really know what the heat situation is. Do we have no heat? Or is it just not working well enough to keep people that warm? People can stay warm for an hour or so.
You know, we have
Well, we
boxes
figure
that
out
we
what
can
to
pass
do.
out and,
Yeah.
And we get
coffee
one
and
of those,
tea.
blankets or whatever, you know.
Well, yeah,
That's what
that's,
I'm
the
saying.
kids could be stressed because they're
Wanna make
cold,
sure
right?
we-
Without
That was
blankets,
great.
giving
Yeah,
out
it was
these-
kind of like a toss-up with us. We were kind of going between
Gray
those two.
area.
We thought, you know, the kids are easy to like.
Throw out.
Yeah.
Go play in the snow.
Did you say that?
And the volunteer, we might have somebody who's a resident who could shadow one of us
Yeah.
and be very handy, very handy.
That makes sense. So thinking about just, how did you come to like some of these decisions? Was it all consensus? Did you have somebody who was designated as, hey, I'm gonna make this decision? How did you decide?
I mean, we talked about the kids and the food, I
Yeah, it
mean,
was
one or the
consensus.
other, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one was, that's not a hill, but consensus for the most part.
Kind of life's priorities.
Consensus, but in a real life situation.
Air, water,
It would be the
food.
shelter manager.
Yeah,
Right.
shelter manager.
That makes sense. And then I guess, with the new family coming in, that inject, how did that change prioritization?
So in our case, we went from food and then prioritization of the allergic child with peanuts, having to be moved to maybe having an isolation area for that family, making sure they're all together, so that became our second priority, is to make sure that family, we would talk to the dormitory manager to see, because we're at 90% capacity, but he knows where everybody is and where do we have a space that's going to be free of peanuts. Does that mean we have to open a classroom for this particular family, and how does the logistics of that work, right? Do we isolate the family instead of going out and say, everybody throw your peanuts away, because if, if it's an air. So, and then the one, because of course we also have the lady with dementia, who's also part of that family, who is a wander risk, right? So if we could isolate this whole family into one area, perhaps, because we're 90% capacity, what do we do when we become over capacity, right? What do we do at that point? Do we open a small classroom for the entire family to be in there where she can't go too far, that there's possibly a bathroom nearby or whatever?
But
We thought of that
we
too,
didn't-
but we were afraid if we opened a room, we need to put a person there.
Yeah, we would.
Volunteer.
Yeah, you would.
We're already down a volunteer.
Yeah.
We're down about.
Yeah, we didn't really reprioritize everything because we were just registering these people, this family. I mean, everything else was just the way it was. It was just,
Right.
this is just what we're doing.
Right, we just made sure the dormitory supervisor was gonna be aware that these
Right.
family needs to stay together. We have a demented family member and a child who's allergic to peanuts.
Follow the normal process.
Now, when
Chain of command.
something like this happens, did you talk about potentially taking people from the dormitory to put to registration and to make it go faster, or how, did you have any conversations about moving anybody?
Other than the people that did registration would assume that task.
So, okay.
It's all situational. How many people we got? If the
How many people
dormitory
are we gonna
supervisor's
have?
there, we register them. He's the supervisor, here are the specifics.
If the shelter manager has to sit at that desk, he does that.
That's right. Right.
One thing we weren't sure about was whether we would have to have, if we were over, how much over capacity could we be, right? Because this family could have maybe put us over capacity, but, then we talked about, well, we have other options, we can always find another place for them. But then we thought the other thing we could do to keep the family together, we could ask for volunteers to go to another shelter to make it doable. If there weren't other options, that would be like the last resort option, but we figured we could find something.
I guess just one question for Phil too, like, have you had a discussion with Wayne about, like, with it being, I guess, either fire marshal or, you know, in charge of like capacity or even school, to what extent they would allow flexibility or something like that?
I would ask that, I've spoken to him once before, and the question would be the state fire marshal. Probably to get the, you know, can't go any higher than that really, that kind of question.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's, you know, you got all these other towns like Sanford who have numerous shelters open and asking for volunteers of single guys in front of the first ones.
Single guys.
I'm sure you get volunteers when you explain the situation. There is a shelter open in Shapley, you know, wherever, which is just down the road. That's a good idea.
If they can get
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
we're having a discussion, right? Can we put this family with a demented and a little child back in a car and say, good luck?
Bye-bye. Right, money for anybody.
Yeah, that's why we kind of took this and these scenarios that you've been handing out, and in a sense, kind of applying it to the Acton
School
situation.
Right.
Right, so that 90% capacity was nowhere even close, because we can house 159
Okay.
people.
Sure.
Okay, and I know that we hadn't discussed it yet, but when we were doing the tour about people with handicaps or mobility issues and stuff like that, instead of them coming down the ramp, there was another door to go into the cafeteria. But that can house up to 22 people as far as the square footage goes. So, I mean, we have to take the scenarios, apply it to what we have here in Acton.
Make it worse.
We're about Kevin and then Bob.
Yeah, I just wondered, that capacity level, is that for the entire school, or is that just the area
No,
that
that was
we're
just-
occupied?
The areas that we're allowed to be in.
When the push came to shove and he had to open up more rooms, we still got more room.
I don't know if that's.
I mean, if it really got bad, they're gonna open up a school.
Well, no, I don't know about that.
Well, he
Well,
said.
I would think so.
He said.
Yeah, there's no school going on. I would think the whole school.
I think John Ross is gonna do whatever he has to help us.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
No doubt.
The only question on that aspect of it.
I thought the
is
capacity was higher, so, you know,
Yeah.
we were using for what the capacity was, but there was still 8 people in the,
Right.
Yep, and then Lynn?
Oh, one of the questions that I had, Phil, that we had was about the food. I know that we're not going to be cooking, and Mr. Ross, is that the gentleman's name? Is he going to be supplying, what is he going to be supplying for resources? Because you said that he would be bringing his
Yeah.
resources.
You're getting ahead of something, because
Oh, okay, never mind.
when you're done here, I'm gonna go through that. and
Oh,
that's-
good, okay, right. So,
And I'll explain it.
okay, but my question is, we don't have,
Well, Tim's
do we
against
have a
cows?
contract with a restaurant or somewhere where we can go to get food?
And I'll explain that.
Okay, okay,
It'll be answered.
okay.
Barbecue.
okay, but do, what?
So the other thing I haven't talked about yet, media. Partly that's in there just kind of as a, you know, hey, if somebody asks for access, what do you do? You can say
Sorry,
media
no,
and
thank
anything
you.
else. So curious what the thoughts were there and how you discussed that.
We've been instructed by our boss, who does the talking, and that's the supervisor and him. And that's
That
it.
you things at the communication.
If
They
the
will be-
media shows,
Communications,
the media shows up there, we'll alert our supervisor, so take it.
We have, the town, the EOP designated a public information officer in writing, which is being signed on the 6th. And that is the only person who'll be talking to me or determining, she'll get the content from everybody, you know, the situational awareness things that come to me and through Wayne and everybody, the fire chief, I should say. And then that gets determined, and the select board might get involved on one, you know, but we gotta make sure what we're saying is true and limited to real time. And so that will go through that one person when it comes to the media, period.
But under no circumstances are they allowed in the shelter.
No,
They gotta stay outside the ice zone.
especially if they smoke.
Well, they're-
They gotta go across the street
camera looks like it's better. It's just as deadly.
So then, kind of thinking of both the first exercise and this one, are there any type of like either gaps that you would fill or something that you would, I guess, like recommend, to make, either documentation better, processes better?
I think you just remembering that it's a shelter, right? And we want to do as much as we can for any of these people, but we also have to make sure that we maintain stay within our resources available. Stay in our lane, I guess is the best way to say it, do our best. But also just to remember to triage constantly. It's constantly changing environment. We're going to constantly be triaging. We're constantly going to be saying, what's the next problem? Okay, let's fix that problem. Let's assess, reassess, and then assess again, right? And just kind of go, it's just going to be a constant flow.
I think one of the top priorities would be our inner circle communications as situations change. Or as a, right off the get-go, once we get it open and we start getting people in there, things are going to flow and have to change around. But our inner communications, that's good. I think, the supervisor, whoever's running the show that day, needs to make sure we're all on the same sheet of music.
And we're all kind of following our chain of command. What he says is, we're not going to spend there 5 minutes and argue about what might be a better option. That is what is going to happen, right? He's told us this, we're going to go do it. Right? Period.
EMA, what are your thoughts?
A lot of the consensus was also as far as resources is calling EMA and see what they have.
Okay,
They'll
that
come
makes sense.
in, whatever it's going to be. If we don't have it, we call for it, and if they don't have it, then we got to go get it.
Makes sense. Another question, so both teams at the very beginning got 2 copies of the SOPs. Did you reference them at all during the exercises?
Yes.
You did,
A
good.
little late.
Okay. What situations made you reference the SOPs?
The rules.
The rules.
list of rules.
Okay, so that's good. What other things did you reference?
Category of the people there.
You gave the right names.
Okay.
Right name, dormitory supervisor.
Dormitory supervisor, not the facility.
When we're making up our action plan, dormitory supervisor will find a house.
And we also
Place for
reference it
this.
for the rules.
In the rules.
Yeah, we've also seen, who we're gonna approach on the different scenarios and stuff, who needs to be notified, who's supposed to be in charge of that.
Do you feel like with SOPs, if you had to make contact with somebody, you'd be able to easily tell who that person could be?
As long as it's designated beforehand, that you're this, you're that, you're that, you're this. I think we still yet to get to that point, but.
You're this, but it's subject to change.
Right.
Well, it's like anything else, we cross-train and we get to know as much about every job as we possibly can, but eventually somebody's gonna have to be designated.
And then, is there anything, well, I guess one, do you feel ready for shelter management? Or is there anything that you would want to feel more ready in the future?
Nah, we're ready, let's go.
You're ready?
I
Well,
think
God forbid, we're ready.
our job is to mitigate, right? We're going to mitigate what we can do, get what we can, and then after it's over, we go, what went well, what didn't go well, and what do we need to improve in the future, right? Tabletops are great, except, sometimes real life scenarios is the one that kind of make you go, okay, that's why we do drills, right? And then we go, oh, that's right, we need to make a
I
plan
think,
for
I think
this.
Phil is planning on some of that, actual
Right.
drills.
Doing a
Where he
walk.
just gives us a call and say, and then we have actors.
And that's why part of tonight is the rave test. Chris made a special section in their group of you folks that's in rave separately to be notified that way. For that, which I mentioned a long time ago, that we actually do a test. If you're in rave.
So any other closing thoughts? Anything?
Can we talk about what I talked to you about?
Yes, yeah, please.
So, if we're opening a shelter and the police show up and want to go get Joe Schmo because he's got a warrant for his arrest, so a signed warrant, he's allowed in that shelter to get it. If he doesn't have a warrant,
No warrant, no.
they can't come in. Just like the press, they can't come into the shelter. unless they have a signed warrant.
And that includes ICE, they must have a signed
Right.
warrant to be able to come to
Yeah.
the shelter. Any of those, so they have to have a warrant. That's the key piece.
And we're not allowed to confirm
Confirm
or deny if
Someone is there.
If someone's there.
John Smith is in the shelter, unless they have a warrant signed by a judge.
Unless what, I'm sorry.
Unless they have a warrant signed by a judge.
Signed by a judge, yeah.
So the
But if
question
it's-
to that, we call law enforcement, whether police or sheriff or whatever, because of
unruly
somebody
behavior.
causing something.
That's different.
We have had them, would they come in and they see somebody that they know has an outstanding warrant, can they then arrest that person?
Still need a
They
warrant.
have to show us the warrant.
Still need a warrant.
They don't have a warrant, there's
Well,
a
we
warrant
call them
out for
because
their
they're a
arrest,
separate, a different incident.
A
Right.
different incident.
We
but
call
they're
them
in the
in.
building.
They
So
spotted someone they've
the-
been looking
So
for.
that's communication between the shelter manager and the law enforcement saying, all right, you need to go get a warrant and come back.
Exactly, yeah.
Right?
Otherwise, they'd be in my household.
There are certain, I mean, there are certain cases though, if it's imminent, if the police in that case said that person over there, it could be imminent
Very
danger for
dangerous.
the rest of the shelter clients.
Absolutely.
And
Common sense.
let them do their
Common
job.
sense.
But always report it up to
Yeah.
Phil, like he needs to know right away this is happening.
So then in that case, they wouldn't need a warrant.
If he tells us it's, that, I mean, that client has.
No, if they get eyes on and we invite.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, I mean, they could say that at any point in time, and we really don't know
Right.
if that person
But
did.
there was
Right.
a question
They're
on
gonna get
our
involved.
incident form.
And that's the law enforcement.
So we defer to law enforcement sometimes, but it's tricky. You have to use your judgment though. But if a police officer was in our shelter and said, that person, you know, they're not gonna point it out from everyone, they might call you aside and say, this is what's going on. You say, can you get the warrant right away? Are we in imminent danger? If he says, you know, you could be in imminent danger because of what we know about this person, and you have to defer to them to say, okay, do your job.
But
Right,
the,
because the
well,
overall goal is the safety of the people,
Right,
right.
including us.
Right,
Yes.
I'm not gonna start splitting hairs on that.
exactly.
If that officer says that person right there has got a warrant for God knows what,
Right.
it's not why I'm here, but I have to arrest them.
Yeah,
I don't think we're gonna leave someone who's dangerous in a shelter.
let them do their job.
But if he's got a warrant for, you know, drug use or whatever, that's totally different.
Right,
They're not in imminent danger.
right.
So,
Traffic violations.
right.
I know the cops can be honest all the time.
I guess you just can do the best you can do.
I mean, technically, there's always going to be gray areas, but
Yeah.
rule of thumb, they must have a signed warrant for a judge for any person in that shelter before we can even confirm or deny it.
Hope brought up a very good point. There's a question on the registration form.
That says, you know, are you registered? So maybe more to the point, is there a restraining order or something
You
like
think the
that?
criminal's gonna tell you that?
No, but, well,
They're
I mean, we're
supposed to.
asking the question.
Well, I think we're getting out of our box.
Yeah.
That's something that's so dynamic, we'll have to deal
Now,
with.
instead of medical, we're getting into legal.
Because we do have dangerous people that come into shelters, right? They have the right as that person, you know, we have homeless people with mental health illnesses that come into a shelter. They have the right to be in that shelter, right? We just have to make sure there's a place for said folks that are away from other people. I mean, a pedophile can come to our shelter, and if we know they're a pedophile, we just have to make sure they're in a place that they're away from children and things like that. I mean, we cannot deny entrance unless they're showing up with a gun and ready to hurt one of us, right? Based on, ooh, I know, I saw he was on the pedophile record last week, you know, I don't, in town, you know, we
Sex
can't.
offender.
A sex offender list, right? And if we knew that, yeah, okay, well, we're gonna put you somewhere else, right?
We have-
Unfortunately.
We
You
have,
might not
What
know.
does the Red Cross do in those kind of circumstances where, that we were just talking about, known sex offenders?
so we've actually had that situation, obviously. I mean, it happens, you know, more than you
I
think.
think.
And that's what we do, but, you know, we keep families with children, you know, in a separate area. And we know the individuals, hopefully we know the individuals. And they're in another area. And they're monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
In this case, they self-identified, they told us,
Mhm.
and we have to treat them with respect. We can't be telling all the other clients, oh, these people are over here, stay away from them.
How do we separate in a large area like the Acton gym that's really wide open?
It's something we have to figure out.
You mean,
They have like these movable chalkboards, around the school. I was thinking we could use that to help as partitions.
Say, for like a family area. you
If
do
nothing
houses.
else, it's a psychological thing.
Right.
If there's just a board standing up there, people feel, okay, we got our own little space, psychological aspect. The only other issue I would ever see the police having to get in there without a warrant is if they're in pursuit. And that person just happens to bust through the doors looking for shelter. That would be the only other thing.
gray areas, right?
I'll just throw one more thing out
Maybe
there.
tackling them anyway, or Ray, somebody would tackle.
Ray.
Ray.
Okay, don't worry about it.
Just one more thing. What happened to us in one of the shelters were these 3 people that looked official with badges and, vests on and guns and all that. They were bounty hunters.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so you really have to be careful who these people are that come into the shelter, right? So make sure they're police.
And they have a warrant.
No, I'm sorry, bounty hunters can't come in,
Yeah.
right? I don't care what you have. And by the way, they showed us a piece of paper signed, right? No, they were not official police, so.
Hopefully that would never happen here in Acton.
Yeah.
You never know.
So I think for the rest of it, we're going to do a quick demo of Rave just to show you how you get alerted for the shelter activation, and then Phil will talk through some questions people had about the school tour, other items like that. So everyone will get settled back in and everything. So do that quickly. So we use a system called Rave. It sends county-wide alerts, but we have you set up in a special list that's only for active shelter notifications. With the contact information, you have email and phone. We put that into the system, and what it'll send you is a poll. It'll send either a text or email that has text, and you can click the link on there. Then you can answer the question that way. The other option is you will also get a phone call. If you make it to be able to answer the phone call, it'll have a corresponding answer based on pressing 1, pressing 2, pressing 3. It'll walk you through all that. So all you need to do is answer one of these when you get it, and Phil gets it. Even if you answer on one of them, it won't let you answer in a different capacity, so you don't have to worry about double answering or anything like that. But it's basically meant to make sure that, like, hey, if you're in an area where you can't receive phone calls, you can at least do it through text or email as well. So that's that bit there. The other piece is that on Phil's end, he'll see a list of everyone's response and then be able to communicate with you from there. I'll kind of show you all how it works on his end. That's kind of a quick overview of that. So any questions before I demo it real quick? Okay, sounds good. So see a little bit more about how we kind of do all this stuff. But what Phil has access to is all these different ways to alert Acton. There's a shelter volunteer polling alert. The poll questions are basically 1 for yes, 2 for need information. You all can answer however you want. You'll see how it shows up on here. It goes to your text, email, or voice. I know these are the people we need on it, so I'm going to send this alert to everybody, and we'll see a lot of phone calls and texts.
And that is said.
Yep.
That's it.
Yes, Lee.
So answer it via phone. You can answer it by clicking the link on the text message or in your email if you prefer, whichever way works best for you.
Phone call. Can you please acknowledge that you received this message? Press 1 to indicate yes. Press 2 to indicate response confirmed.
So then just so you're aware up here, like as everybody's answering, these
Get
are the
away from
different
that.
responses that you can see here. So Phil will be able to say, yes, I actually need more information, but that way you can see it's quickly there for him to see a quick yes or no. And then at that point, you know, he can reach out to the people that he needs to reach out to. So, yeah, any comments, Phil, or anything?
That's great.
Yeah, does that work for everybody? Is that like easy, simple?
We got a text.
Let's see, what else do we have?
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the test.
That's excellent. So we
Yeah.
can actually see what it looks like.
All right, so,
Thank you, Chris. Of course. That was an excellent class, huh?